Astroscientists agree on one point, that the possibility of life elsewhere is not only quite probable, some feel it is there without a doubt. Let us suppose then that these objects are real space vehicles, extraterrestrial in origin, and not an illusion of the mind.
There's nothing to hide. There's nothing to hide at all.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Somewhere in the Live Stream. I am your host, Ryan Sprague, the host of the Somewhere in the Skies podcast. So if you guys aren't subscribed, please go hit that subscribe button. Check us out. We do a show every Monday, which means we have an episode coming out in less than like 2 hours if you're in the UK. So be sure to check that out. But this is a live stream we do every Sunday evening, whether you're on the West Coast, the East Coast, in the UK, or beyond. And we cover all the latest UFO news, UFO headlines, space news, you name it. We try to cover it every Sunday. So welcome. It's so good to have all of our regulars here. I see Ruth is here, Android Paranormal, Jamie is here, Super Chuckles is here, hello, Robert Zimmer, Donnie Falls, Jeffrey Tomlin, someone named Suzanne Landers. I don't know who that is. She must be new to the show. Hello to Suzanne, our incredible moderator. She will be with you guys all of tonight. So be sure to give her a huge hello wave and thank you for always being incredible in the chat with you guys. The biologist is here. Jay Lilly. Johan is here. Welcome, guys. Pine Cedar, Dalen, Tad. I love you guys. Thank you. Thank you for all your support as always. If you're new to the show, welcome as well. We have so much to talk about tonight. I don't even know where to begin. So I guess I'll begin with what I'm drinking tonight. Darth. That was a slip. You'll know why in just a little while. Dark Monroe. This is a beer from the Orkney Islands here in Scotland. So I'm super happy about that. It's delicious, and I'm going to need it to get through tonight. Trust me. What are you guys drinking tonight during your Somewhere in the Live Stream viewing parties? I want to know. Let me know in the chat as well. Speaking of chat, the super chat and super stickers are open. If you guys would like to help support the show, this is a wonderful one-time way of doing that. We will highlight your comments. We will get to your questions in the super chat at the end of the show as well. And yeah, every penny that you give to the show goes right back into the show. So thank you. Thank you for all of your support. If you can't help us financially, I completely understand. Trust me. You can just share the show. Click like, click subscribe to the podcast, whatever you got to do. Just do it. We love you. We thank you immensely for that. Speaking of donations, I guess I do want to bring up something I'm doing right now. And this is a campaign that I'm running for my wonderful, wonderful sister, Christy. Now, for those of you who may or may not know, Christy is my one and only sibling, my younger sister, and she is probably the most caring person in the entire world, especially when it comes to animals, and especially when it comes to her foster dog that she actually officially adopted, Maddie. So Maddie was neglected as a pup, and like most, dogs that are adopted, they have a lot of health problems because of that neglect. And Maddie had a lot of that, a lot of health problems. And right now, Christy is dealing with a lot of those medical issues with her incredible French bulldog, who I love to death. She is just so cute. I got to spend a lot of time with her a couple months ago when I was home in New York. But we had some scary times, and Christy's had some scary times with Maddie as of late. And this would basically it caused Christy to have to bring Maddie to a bunch of special doctors to get her checked and evaluated, and she had to have evasive operations done, both as pup and recently. So this has put Christy in a very, very tough position when it comes to paying those medical bills. Like, you guys think human medical bills are bad? Just wait till you bring your dog to several specialists and you'll see. So, um, Christy is the type of person who would never ask for help. That's just the way my family was raised. But I am asking for help for Christy. So, if any of you can help her in any small way, I have set up a GoFundMe for her. Suzanne has put a link there for you guys. The link is in the show notes as well. And yeah, every small bit helps us to try to reach our goal for Christy. We are currently at around $1,800 with a $4,000 goal. But the bills keep piling in. So anything you can give to help ease this financial burden on my sister, I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. So thank you guys. And I know Maddie and Christy will thank you as well. So again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for that. All right. I think that's it for talking shop before we get into the latest news. Jack Daniels and Berry Punch. Yum, super chuckles. That sounds good. Sounds good. I'm a whiskey fan. You guys know that. You know that. All right. Hello to Jim. Welcome. Have a great show. Got to go to my son's gig. Break a leg to your son. I hope he has a wonderful gig, and we'll see you in the archived version, Jim. So thank you. Thank you. All right, guys. Let's start with the UFO news. This is a story that we actually covered maybe a little less than a month ago. If you guys will remember, it was about this handbook that let me get this right, the Major Cities Chiefs Association. So basically all the, chiefs of police departments throughout the United States, they have an association, and recently they implemented an 11-page handbook on UAPs, how law enforcement should handle these situations, and to kind of get them up to speed on what UAP are, procedures that have been put into place by government when it comes to them, and how law enforcement can eventually become a part of that. It's really interesting. So we went through, I think, a good portion of the handbook in a live stream, maybe, like I said, about a month ago. So you can go back and watch that if you'd like to learn more. Or I actually put a link to the handbook in the show notes as well. I might have given it to Suzanne too, so she can link it as well too. But what I'm going to do now is play a clip from News Nation where a one Police Chief Johnny Jennings of the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department actually talked about this. The handbook has now been handed out and has been implemented into a lot of the police departments in the United States. So let's go ahead and watch this clip, and we'll talk a little bit about this story on the other side. Enjoy.
Agencies across America are taking notice of UFOs, and now they want a way to track them. Major Cities Chief Association, I should say, is a forum for police executives. They say UAPs and UFOs pose a national security threat, and it's the responsibility of police officers to know how to detect, track, and report them. That's why they just sent out an 11-page UAP guide to police departments all over the country. Joining me now, we have Johnny Jennings, Police Chief for the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department. Chief Jennings, always good to have you on the show. As you know, unidentified flying objects have gotten way more play in the last year than ever before, but I think a lot of Americans still hear this and say, what? Walk us through this handbook.
Yeah, I think it's the same as anybody else. Police officers and police chiefs across the country, they say the same response. What? And but when you look at the entire aspect of what's going on and what has been going on, it's really just an awareness situation to say that, hey, these things are out there. They're happening, whether you believe in what the origin of them are or not. They're happening, and it's important that we are able to report on them.
Yeah, I was wondering what the internal response to this has been. My other question when I heard this story yesterday, I mean, do these encounters happen often enough to where it rises to the occasion of needing a handbook for it? Have you seen one?
Yeah, no, I haven't personally seen one, and we haven't, we don't have a great deal of reporting of any unidentified anomalous phenomenon here in Charlotte. However, they do happen in certain parts of the country and if they do happen, we just want to make sure that they're reported properly, they're taken seriously. Again, I don't think anybody's in major city chiefs are running around saying that we're being invaded by aliens, but I think that what we're saying is that these things are out there, they're happening. They can be a threat, particularly if you have aircraft in your organization. Charlotte Mecklenburg does have helicopters that we fly, and so we have to make sure that we're safe in the skies as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm also curious, does your department have enough resources to dedicate to UFOs and UAPs?
Well, there's really no resources to dedicate to it. I think what the booklet and handbook that we're talking about is simply that an awareness handbook and as well as information on, hey, let's take these serious. If your aviation team or if any of your officers do encounter something that's strange out there in the skies or the skies, land, or even in the water, that it's important to report that and that we start tracking it as best we can, because we just, you don't know until something happens, or you don't know until you know that you have to be safe in the skies as you're flying our aircraft as well, and that's important to make sure that we're tracking these incidents.
Yeah, you don't know until you know. Well, this story certainly caught our eye this week, so we appreciate you taking the time to break it all down. Chief Johnny Jennings, thanks so much, sir.
Oh, there we go. I was on mute. Interesting. I respect, that he said, we haven't run into a lot of anomalous phenomena ourselves, but it is happening around the country and we should be made aware of it. There should be protocol and contingency. I mean, we've done episodes in the past of law enforcement and UFOs, like how many police officers have witnessed UFOs. The one that immediately comes to mind would be the Portage UFO chase that happened, where like 3 or 4 police officers witnessed, or basically in a high-speed chase with the UFOs. And, they didn't really know what to do or how to handle it. And eventually they would report it to their superiors. And at that time, the stigma was just insane. And they were literally like ridiculed and laughed off the force. And it shouldn't be that way. And it looks like it's not going to be that way. I mean, this handbook is now being implemented. They have to give it to all of the police officers throughout the United States. So, interesting, really interesting story. I love how he mentioned water also being a part of it. Yeah, UFOs and water, man. We're we're diving deeper, forgive the pun, further into USOs in the world lately. So, it's good that they're thinking about that too. And yeah, I thought that was a pretty even-handed interview. He handled it as best he could without any ridicule, and they're taking this very seriously. So that was really cool. That was really cool to see. Let me go up in the chat and see what you guys are saying before we move on to our next story. Yeah. Ruth says that handbook is amazing, should be general issue. Absolutely. Hello to Robert Chafee, who's here. They'll become a collector's item, Johan says. Yeah. That's for sure. Hello to Nisa. Nisa is here as well. Hello, hello. Gareth, hello. The other thing I want to touch on with this is, who do you report UFOs to? So many times, police officers are the ones that get these calls. We just did an episode this past week about the black triangles, and we had the audio of, God, over half a dozen UFO reports that were given to NUFORC, the National UFO Reporting Center. And this is back in the mid 70s, where there was seemingly a black triangle UFO wave happening, and all throughout the United States. we hear about the Hudson Valley sightings that happened in the the 80s, but this happened prior to that. And the calls are startling when you listen to them. I highly suggest you guys go back and listen to last week's episode. Just the raw UFO hotline reports. And a lot of those witnesses were police officers, and they didn't know what to do. They're like, I guess we're going to report it to you, the National UFO Reporting Center. Like, here you go. Make of it what you will. So, yeah, very interesting, all of it. Forgive me, guys. Just reading your chats here. I'm trying to be more interactive with you guys. I get so caught up in what I'm saying that I tend to not look at the chat. There's a black triangle in Sweden reported by a soldier, Johan said. Interesting. Interesting. Causeway Pictures is here. I think sightings have been too normalized. The police just nod and take the note. Yeah, that's probably the case, but at least now they know where they can take it from there instead of just jotting it down, throwing it in the desk. Like, they can be like, oh yeah, there's the National UFO Reporting Center. I'll go send it there. Or wow, like dozens of people saw this. Maybe it wasn't just, some drunk person in the woods or a hoax or something like that. Let me reach out to MUFON and they can actually investigate it. I don't doubt the police for not investigating a UFO sighting, unless it like hurts somebody physically. But yeah, at least they will now know with this handbook what to look for. Maybe they can even prosaically or conventionally explain what a thing is if it's an active UFO sighting occurring that a police officer is a part of. So there's that too. At least they can be like, okay, let me go to MUFON and see what they can do. Pass the buck, as they say. It's interesting. All right. Let's move, guys, to our next story. This is, I guess, exciting. It really depends on how you perceive it and if you believe that it's a good thing, which is most of ufology, right? Boom. Who do we got here? We have Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and Representative Nancy Mace. What do they have in common? Definitely not their politics, I can tell you that much. But in a bipartisan effort separately, 2 UFO hearings are allegedly going to take place. One in the Senate, one in the House. So the first one we just learned about is from Askapol. If you guys are not subscribed to Askapol, I highly suggest it. Go to askapol.com. That's ASKAPOL.com with Matt Laszlo, who's the host over there. And this dude is just tenacious. He's one of these gumshoe dudes who's out in Washington chasing down senators and Congress members, as they come out of the buildings, as they're getting into their cars, as they're dodging people like Matt Laszlo during their lunch breaks. And this guy has gotten quotes from every single representative about UAP and UFOs. And he recently was able to catch up with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand because there were rumors going around that there was possibly going to be another UFO hearing, UAP hearing in the Senate. And, we were really wondering, will it happen? Will it not? We actually had Christina Gomez, who gave a presentation at my virtual conference a couple weeks ago, Anomicon, where she talked all about the congressional UFO hearing that happened with David Grush. She went even further back with all the other hearings and all that. And it was all leading up to what she believed, and I also heard, was going to be another Senate UFO hearing in this month of September. And, we weren't really hearing anything and thought, no, I guess it's not going to happen this year. But this is audio that Matt Laszlo was able to get with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. So I'm going to go ahead and play that, and we'll talk a little bit more about this story on the other side.
Hey, ma'am, are we gonna see a UAP hearing this month?
Yeah, I have a schedule.
When is it scheduled?
The UAP hearing. It's in September, I'm pretty sure.
Interesting. Why is that a priority?
It's a priority for me because I think it's very important that we continue to make things publicly available. Give a progress report on how many unidentified aerial phenomena we've assessed and analyzed, give examples of what we have identified, and give examples of what we haven't identified so that the community can be kept up to speed about what we're actually doing and what this office is doing. We also want to try to continue to build credibility within this office so more of the public can feed in sightings and have a place and a platform to send information and inquiries, because that's eventually what this office is supposed to do.
And this is gonna be with Arrow, Timothy Phillips.
Yep, and we'll have there's a new head that's been identified. I don't know if it's been publicly named yet, but I'm hoping that the new head will be the one to testify.
There we go, guys. Apparently, we're getting a Senate UAP hearing by the end of this month, and it should include the new Arrow director. So that's interesting. Apparently, they're going to show videos and imagery of cases they were able to explain, which, womp womp. Those aren't the ones we actually want to see, but I get it. They want to show that Arrow is doing something, is doing their quote unquote job that was mandated for them, and what they could prosaically explain, which is probably 99.9% of it, like all of UFOs pretty much are. So while it may be a little sobering for most out there who really want the aliens, it's a hearing, and it's a UAP hearing, and we're going to get to hopefully hear from the new Arrow director, which I know everyone is eagerly awaiting to see what this guy has to say in comparison to the former head, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. So be on the lookout for more news on that over at askapoll.com. And he also just spoke to several representatives about a House hearing that's supposed to take place and will be headed by Representative Nancy Mace. Now, this one might be a little bit more up the alley of those who really want to hear from like whistleblowers and stuff like that. There's rumors that maybe like Luis Elizondo might be at this House hearing. Maybe Grush will make another appearance. There might be other whistleblowers that we've never even heard of coming forward. Maybe Jay Stratton. I don't know. But that seems to be down the pipeline as well. So you could definitely be on the lookout for those. And our next story, guys, I'm going to speed through because we have a special guest joining us in just a little bit, and I don't want to leave them hanging too long. But we mentioned Jay Stratton, and the news came out recently that HarperCollins has acquired the rights to the bombshell memoir from Jay Stratton, former director of the U.S. government's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. We will be talking about the UAPTF later in the show with our guest as well, so stick around for that. But I'm just going to read this quick. HarperCollins imprint William Morrow has acquired the rights to a new memoir from Jay Stratton, former director of the UAP Task Force. And you guys may remember George Knapp, the investigative journalist out there in Las Vegas. He interviewed Jay Stratton basically when he came out of the shadows and started talking about having run the UAP Task Force. So I'm going to play a brief clip from that to get us up to speed on, kind of what Jay Stratton was up against when he was running the task force. And then I'll close out this one with a little bit more about Stratton and what to expect with that book in the near future. So give this a watch and talk about it on the other side.
Can you describe for me at what point UFOs, they were called then, UAPs now, at what point that kind of got on your radar screen? Was it something you had at least a casual interest in growing up, or it came a point in your professional career that it landed on your desk?
Yeah, every time I've done anything related to UAP or UFO has been my job. And what I mean by that, I didn't really have a passion growing up. I didn't have all the books. I didn't watch all the TV shows. I stepped into a job at the Defense Intelligence Agency where some things came across the desk, again, thinking technologies and other things where I needed to really kind of dig in and understand potentials. And those potentials, I kept an open mind, a skeptic mind, whatever you want to call it, looking for something that could answer this in all the means that I had to chase that. But there were definitely some times where we really couldn't close the loop. And with that, we realized that something needed to be done about it.
Yeah, so I mean, this guy was one of the most highly ranked individuals to ever investigate UFOs in an official capacity. So this is interesting. I'll read a little bit more from the press release here. As a senior intelligence official, and while much of his work is classified, the memoir promises to reveal all that can be lawfully disclosed, providing a firsthand account of the shocking discoveries, challenges, and breakthroughs that have marked the U.S. government's investigation and understanding of UAP and non-human intelligences, as well as the profound effects on Stratton and his family. It was interesting on Twitter recently. Jay Stratton finally tweeted for the first time in like since he got on Twitter. He said, quote, "We are at the beginning of a new chapter for humanity. The process of disclosure is complex, but it has begun." Interesting. Let me see here. When forming the UAP Task Force, Stratton handpicked members from every agency within the intelligence community and each branch of the military. Among Stratton's handpicked team members uh, were whistleblower David Grush, who testified under oath to Congress last year about the technology and biological evidence of non-human intelligence. The Secretary of Defense announced the UAP Task Force in 2020, naming Stratton the program's director. So we'll see what happens with this, guys. This is the same. Stratton's working with the same people that worked with Lou Elizondo on his book. Farah, I believe, is the gentleman's name. He's kind of like a manager sort of guy. I'm not too familiar with him. Forgive me. I got to get more up to speed on that. But also, I believe that Farah, whatever production company or agency he works for, they've also acquired the movie rights to both Elizondo's story and Jay Stratton's story. So there's a lot going on here in terms of like rolling out this information when it comes to books and movies with all of these former intelligence people who seem to be at odds with one another lately. I'm not one to really get into like the drama side of all of that, but it does seem like Jay Stratton and Lou Elizondo kind of they have different perspectives on not only one another and the capacity in which each of them worked for different things, whether it's ATIP, OSAP, but also what the phenomena could be, how it affected them personally, and where all of this is heading when it comes to quote unquote disclosure. So I very much look forward to this book by Jay Stratton. I'm really excited for it. Who knows when it's actually going to come out, but we'll see. We will see what happens. But guys, we're going to take a very, very quick break, and we're going to come back and talk about Dick Cheney. I never thought I would say that on this show, or Darth Cheney, as we'll get to. But stick around, and we'll be back with a very special guest joining us and talk a little bit more about UFOs. All right, I'll see you in a minute. Hey everyone, Ryan Sprague here, host of Somewhere in the Skies. If you've ever thought about supporting us, we have great 2 easy options for you right now. If you listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, you can click the subscribe button at the top of your Apple feed. Or you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/somewhereskies. Both of these options give you the same benefits: early access to the main show, bonus episodes and content, and priority to ask our guests your listener questions. So, to help support Somewhere in the Skies, click that subscribe button on Apple or visit patreon.com/somewhereskies. Thank you so much for your support, and keep looking up. All right, guys, we are back with Somewhere in the live stream. If you're just joining us, we've covered all the latest UFO news, including Mr. Jay Stratton here, if you're watching this on YouTube, coming out with a memoir all about his time working at the UAP Task Force. We covered the police chief's manual on UFOs, And we also talked about the upcoming Senate UAP hearing that is supposed to happen later this month. All very interesting and exciting things, but let's move. We'll get to Peru mummies later. I don't want to put our poor special guest through that. But we're moving to Dick Cheney. Is Dick Cheney at the top of the UFO cover-up pyramid? What is going on? Let's watch a brief clip from our very good friend Dan Warren. If you guys aren't following Dan, be sure to check out all of his videos over on Twitter. We'll have a link to his Twitter account scrolling for you in a little bit. But he did a video to kind of give us the Cliff Notes version of why people are now saying that Dick Cheney might be kind of at the top of the UFO chain, as it were. So let's watch that, and then we're gonna bring our guest in. Give us a watch. This is awesome. Kudos to Dan. He made me laugh. Watch this.
Must be the most hilarious twist in the UAP disclosure story. We may have just learned who the head of the UFO gatekeepers is, and if you don't know, well, it's Big Dick Cheney. That's right, the guy whose nickname is literally the Darth Vader of DC is rumored to be the guy in charge of the gatekeeping effort to keep the answer to the question, are we alone, from me, from you, and from humanity at large. And Cheney even embraces his galactic moniker and even dressed up as a spirit animal on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. And we suspect that Darth Cheney is in charge of the UFO cover-up because of recent comments made by Walter Kern, a journalist who spent the day interviewing David Grush for the County Highway, who recently stated,
I talked to a high-level UFO whistleblower last year, and I said to him, who among all the people in society is keeping this secret? Who sits atop the pyramid of classified information about UFOs? But he said, Dick Cheney.
And while the jury is still out on the credibility of this claim, this isn't the first time that the UFO Rebel Alliance has focused their sights on connecting Big Dick Cheney to the UFO cover-up, including Wendell Stevens, who decades ago claimed,
and the government is not going to open the files. We have people, prominent people, that know all about what the government is sitting on. Dick Cheney, vice president, was photographed at level 2 of S4 looking at one of 7 crash discs.
And in 2001, UFO researcher Grant Cameron was even able to ask Dick Cheney on air about his knowledge of the UFO topic.
Mr. Cheney, I have a question. Since the statement made by George Bush last July, there's been a vicious rumor circulating in the UFO community that you've been read into the UFO program. So my question to you is, in any of your government jobs, have you ever been briefed on the subject of UFOs? And if you have, when was it and what were you told?
Well, if I had been briefed on that, I'm sure it was probably classified and I couldn't talk about it.
And I can't think of anyone better suited or willing to withhold basic fundamental truths of our collective existence from us in exchange for military advantage and profit. Think about it. He's one of the most powerful men to ever straddle the line between the U.S. military and the weapons industry. And he possibly has the influence to persuade the military to engage in conflicts that result in lucrative contracts being awarded for the development of the next generation of our war-fighting machines. And this arrangement ensures that the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about continues to eat good and grow its power and influence over our elected officials. So yeah, maybe Dick Cheney really is the UFO Darth Vader. And yeah, that makes you part of the UAP Rebel Alliance. Now ask yourself, do you think Dick Vader is in charge of the organization to cover up the UFO topic that Lou Elizondo recently described as...
There is absolutely a cabal, an organized group of individuals who have a comprehensive understanding of the U.S. government's involvement in the UAP topic going back decades. They are very influential, and they guard this information jealously. In the past, they have been able to exercise extreme influence, and I cannot overstate the terminology I'm using here, okay, to keep this conversation squelched.
There you go, guys. Special thanks to Dan Warren for that entertaining video to say the least. I did put a poll over on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube. We are live on Twitch too. I totally forgot to mention that. So welcome to our Twitch subscribers as well. And Twitter X. Thank you guys. Thank you. I did a poll and I asked, is Darth Cheney our UFO Sith Lord? 48% of you said yes, 14% said no, 31% said need more info, 8% said I'm more of a Star Trek fan. So that's fair. That's fair. That 31% need more info. That's where I'm at right now. And like any UFO researcher, when I heard about this, what did I do? I Googled, is Dick Cheney part of the UFO cover-up? And I stumbled across a YouTube channel, which I subscribed to, and I highly suggest all of you do. And I found a 40-minute video talking about this very story. So to sort of expand on all of this when it comes to Dick Cheney and why he might at least be involved with this, if not at the very tippy top, why people are saying this and why it could maybe be possible. So I'm going to bring in right now from the Expanded Knowledge YouTube channel, Anthony De Lorenzo, and we're going to talk more about this. So let me bring him in, guys. And yeah, I'm super excited. Anthony, welcome to Somewhere in the Live Stream, man.
Hey, Ryan. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Okay. So, like I said, sometimes the best way to meet new people is to stumble across them on the internet. And that's what happened to me today, man. Literally. Nice. I knew I was doing this live stream. I knew I wanted to cover this story because everyone's sort of talking about it. And I was finding nothing. All I was finding was that same clip, like Kern, saying Dick Cheney. And then that's it. And then there was like nothing else talking about it. And then lo and behold, your YouTube channel popped up and I watched the video. And then I immediately, like in the comments section, was like, hey, do you want to come talk about this? And you were so kind to just be like, throw caution to the wind and say, I'm going to come on this random person's live stream. So again, Anthony, thank you for your time, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for reaching out. I'm happy I was able to come.
Yeah, me too. So for our audience, again, guys, go subscribe to the channel. We'll have the link for you guys as well. Can you tell us a little about yourself? I know you kind of give brief intros in some of your videos, but whatever you're willing to share with our audience, who you are, what you do, and what brought you into this crazy UFO world, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. The YouTube channel that you found my video at is Expanded Knowledge with an X. And I started that last year. And basically, I would say for the last 3 to 4 years, I've been studying in depth the UFO subject. So just reading book after book. And I would say before that, I always thought that there was probably something to it, but I never really gave it any actual serious thought. And I just stumbled upon a book. It's called The Day After Roswell by a former Pentagon official who wrote it in 1997. And he said he got the Roswell files. And I read that book going into it with an open mind. And I basically came out of it saying, wow, there's really something going on. Dug more and more into it. And it was kind of funny because right after about 2 years, it took me to get to a point where I was just about to conclude like that it really is a real thing. At that same moment, David Grush came out with the first thing. And so I was like, wow, what an interesting timing. And so now my channel, I just, I share my research. I share about my thoughts about the what's going on currently. And as far as me, I'm a history teacher and a philosophy professor. So that's what I do. And so it's kind of very interesting for me to get into this subject and look at it historically and think about it, like what makes sense and like what kind of arguments are good and so forth. So
that's so cool, man. I recently had a gentleman named Greg Agigian on the show, and he is a historian at Penn State University.
Oh.
And I believe he just came out with a book from a historian's perspective of this topic. And, like you mentioned with Philip Corso, the book that you read, I remember Day After Roswell very well. It was one of my first books. You can only see a portion of my library back here, but I've got about, 12 boxes of UFO books back home in my parents' attic. So
Nice.
I know what that's like to sort of get consumed with this topic and read every book you can. In fact, I've just got this one yesterday. It's called The Flying Saucer Viewpoint. I'm not familiar with it. I love the cover, which is,
Yeah.
often a selling point for these
Yeah.
UFO books. But all this to say, it's refreshing to see someone like yourself, a historian, getting involved. I wish more historians would get involved in this topic. And it also gives us context for a story like this Dick Cheney thing. Now, for me, kind of a surface level, I don't like calling myself an expatriate. I live in Scotland right now,
Okay.
but I am clearly from the United States,
Mhm.
or at least North America.
Sure.
And I knew Dick Cheney as the vice president. That's really about it.
Yeah.
Everyone's calling him Darth Cheney, or they're calling him like the most powerful vice president in history. And these are things that I never grew up knowing. Maybe I should have paid a bit more attention to
Mm.
politics in American history.
Yeah.
But that's my long-winded way of asking you, why are people saying this? Why is it possible that Dick Cheney could be part of the UFO cover-up, if not at the top? Do you have any sort of idea of why that might be?
Yeah, well, I would say first of all, let's look at where the comment came from, as you showed in that great clip there, that David Grush told Walter Kern, the reporter, right? And you can look at the original article from 2023. Walter Kern was interviewing David Grush. It was like October of 2023, and he said, of everyone who knows something about it, the UFO cover-up, who knows the most? Grush said, I can give you a guess. Now, in the article, they didn't say Dick Cheney. So, Kern just moved on. But Grush said, remember, it's just a guess. So now, yes, like you showed in your video, this journalist, Walter Kern, recently in that interview said it was Dick Cheney. And of course, we know he's talking about David Grush, right?
Yeah.
So I'd say to start, right, look, David Grush spent 4 years on the UAP Task Force investigating all of these compartmented programs that no one was ever allowed to investigate before until the UAP Task Force. So for this guy, and he was a high-level intelligence agent with a 14-year career, for him to do a 4-year investigation, submit all his evidence, and then come out publicly, and for him to say that, I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he must have good reason to say that. So that would be where I'd start, is like, Grush must have uncovered something to imply that. So there's that. But then if you look more deeper into the history of what some call the secrecy regime of the national security state of the United States government and the military, you see that, like you said, right, those of us who are familiar with Dick Cheney, we think of him as the VP to Bush, right? And yes, he was this powerful VP, and he was, kind of like this villain character. We don't think much more. And it was funny when I heard the Dick Cheney story last week, because earlier this year I had read a book that I recommend very much. It's called State of Silence by someone called Sam Lebovic. And this is a very well-sourced history of America's secrecy state. And what I found as interesting throughout the book is Dick Cheney's really being like, the way this author put it was, Cheney was like the golden boy of this group that was really laying down the secrecy, lids tight on things. And it goes all the way back to the 60s that Cheney was in there. So, he had a long 40-year career where he was instrumental in keeping state secrets. And we're talking about, things that go back, we could get into more details about, but these secrets they had to start covering up were things like MK Ultra, the mind control experiments, and the COINTELPRO, which was where the FBI infiltrated citizens activist groups and were sabotaging their efforts, and this stuff came out. And then these actors, who Cheney was really at the center of, started to figure out how can we clamp down, make sure Congress doesn't uncover anything else. So that's probably where I'd start with that, and we could get into more detail wherever you want to.
Sure. I mean, you bring up a good point. Like, he's been doing this since you said, like, the 60s. That leaves a lot of time for him to, at his level, somehow butt up against the UFO topic. And I'm not even talking in the sense of like, oh, aliens crashed in Roswell, but just simply exotic technology that has been recovered, whether it's from a rival nation or is simply anomalous or unknown to the United States. There's no doubt that he's come up against this in some way, in some form, in some fashion.
Yeah.
So I guess it would make sense for someone like Grush to not only name him or at least like suggest him, but for people like maybe even Jay Stratton to, at his level, to have come up against that. You know, we showed a clip earlier in the show. I don't know if you were watching, but he talked about like the struggle he had trying to get to some of these places, whether it's like the Department of Energy, who are, you know, basically don't have to answer to anyone, or special access programs that he was coming into contact with and they weren't giving him anything.
Sure.
You do truly have to wonder, like, who is above, like, what is Stratton? I believe it was like second ranked admiral or something. I'm horrible with military.
Yeah, his position was really high, and because it was technically like civilian, but he's military. It was what they say is the equivalent of a 2-star general.
Okay,
You know,
got it.
Even though he wasn't technically a general, you know, but
yeah. Well, and you know, like, again, some of this might come out in his book. Who really knows? I had a couple more questions here
Sure.
for you, Anthony. Let's see. You, in your video, which again, guys, it's 40 minutes long. It's awesome. You go into so much detail. I highly suggest people go watch it. But we'll do the greatest hits here because I don't want to keep you all night, Anthony. You mentioned in your video other people that could possibly have been involved throughout the years when it comes to this cover up. Is that something you'd be willing to touch on here? Some of those individuals that you spoke about?
Yeah, and that's really key because, you know, when you asked me the first question, kind of just gave you like Cheney's very verifiable history of being at the center of just state secrecy, right, on the deepest levels. So we know that now, like you said just now, what's the UFO connection though, right? And if you look at who he was with and who he was working as an assistant to, can I screen share so your viewers could see some visuals, or?
I think so. I have one visual here that I pulled from your YouTube channel. I don't know if that helps at all.
Oh, yes, that was the one I was going to pull. Exactly.
Oh, perfect. Dude, this was meant to be. I'm
Just
telling
so
you.
people can see the faces here, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you look to the far left, that's Donald Rumsfeld. And Dick Cheney started his career out being his assistant. Now, there's a book called Space Force by an author, Michael Salla. And Michael Salla does a good job in this book of documenting the interesting involvement of Space Force in the UFO issue. And, you know, we don't really think about Space Force that much. It was created back during the Trump administration a few years ago. But Rumsfeld has this long history with the UFO subject going all the way back to the 1960s. And Rumsfeld was making investigations into Congress, into what was going on with the UFO issue, having scientists come and talk about it. If you look in the middle there, Gerald Ford, who Cheney also worked closely with his whole time in the government. And these guys were all like affiliated with each other. Gerald Ford, same thing. In the 60s, he's on the record. There's quotes that I showed in my video where he's actively pursuing the UFO issue. And then to his right, you have Richard Nixon. Now, Nixon's very interesting because he was pretty quiet about the UFO issue. There's really only one quote that you can find where he basically says, you know, he can't talk about it or something like that. But there's rumors about Nixon. One of them is that the actor Jackie Gleason, who they were very close, and we know Gleason was obsessed with UFOs and aliens. He made like a house in a UFO shape. There's a rumor, a story that Nixon took him to one of these underground labs or whatever and showed him one of the like alien bodies that was in a chamber or whatever.
Right.
And then, as Michael Sala argues in his book, he links Rumsfeld to being involved in that and kind of helping Nixon get that access. So, and then there are even some wild stories out there about Gerald Ford having a close encounter, if you will. And then, of course, on the far right, you have George Bush, who Dick Cheney was the vice president to. And you look at the Bushes, his father was the CIA director. When Bill Clinton went to him, George Bush's father, and said, I don't want to get their UFO files, George Bush Sr. said, you don't have a need to know. So we can infer that the Bushes have a deeper layer of knowledge. And then you just look, and then I'll say one more thing about this cast of characters who these are like Cheney's group here, entourage. Nixon was VP to President Eisenhower. And Eisenhower, of course, there's the famous legend, rumor that he met with some types of ETs. Now, we don't know if there's any truth to that, but it's been hanging around for a long time. At the very least, we do know that Eisenhower knew something was going on. And he made his farewell speech saying, watch out for the military-industrial complex. That's what he chose to focus on. And we know that he has a lot of UFO files in his personal archives, President Eisenhower. So it's possible that Nixon, we're talking about the mid to late 50s, right, when the UFO issue is really just still in that early stages. And Nixon was right there in the Oval Office with Eisenhower. And so to wrap it up, Cheney's connected to all these guys who have clear, documented UFO involvement. So for me, to make those two links, right? One, Grush names him. Two, we know he was a state secrecy agent on a very deep level. Three, he's close with all these UFO guys who we know have UFO involvement. And so therefore, it makes sense to me. And now I'll say this last, though. When we talk about the top of the pyramid, my own personal opinion is that Cheney would not be at the top of the pyramid. And I could go into the reasons why for that, but I'll stop there.
Interesting. Oh, I really want to ask you who you think is at the... Do you mention that in your video?
All I mention is that I think that they're anonymous. And okay. I base that for different reasons, but probably the best evidence I'd give to support that idea is there's another book called The Secret Team, and it's by Colonel Fletcher Prouty, Prouty. Now, this guy was the chief of special operations for the Joint Chiefs of Staff from like 1956 to 1960, like this critical period when all this stuff was going on. And his job was literally, he oversaw the CIA's covert operations. So he was very much in the know. He came out and wrote this book, which was very controversial, actually, that he wrote it. They didn't like it, tried to take it off the shelves and whatnot. You can get it, though, now on Amazon or whatever. And what he said was, the ones who are really behind it all are anonymous. And he says their anonymity is their strength, and they know it. And so he said multiple times in his career, he'd be in a room with someone who should have been the top of the top. And all of a sudden they would get a phone call and they were taking orders from someone. And Colonel Prouty says in the book, who is giving them the orders, you know? So I value someone like that's memoir, someone who was in there, like, because we don't know what goes on there, but these people do. And so for him to say there's an anonymous secret team behind it all, that would be what I think. And so I wouldn't put Cheney on the top. Cheney might be on the top of like the government officially like dealing with this issue, but I think there's like a deeper actor that like probably like manipulates the U.S. government. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. The anonymity. Yeah, excuse me. It's a hard one.
I know.
It is their power. It's so true. You know, I don't really get into politics on the show, but we should mention, recently that Dick Cheney did endorse Kamala Harris. And, we've had Trump talk about UFOs in the past as well, in terms of like, oh yeah, totally. I'll release everything. I got the JFK stuff. I'll get you your Roswells. I'll get you your Area 51s, whatever you guys want to know. Whereas someone like Harris has never really touched on the subject, maybe very tangentially. But do you think if, let's say hypothetically, that she does become president and, she does have Dick Cheney in her ear, that this topic would ever come up, or is it too early to really kind of make an assumption about something like that?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's early to make an assumption. I mean, I will say at a basic level, I think it's an important thing that she, has said Dick Cheney is endorsing her, and we know his history and where he likely stands, and the fact that Grush named him is significant. So I do think that if he's supporting Kamala Harris, in my opinion, is that there's a reason for that, and my conjecture would be that whoever Cheney and whoever else may be trying to keep the lid on whatever, if the UAP issue, let's say, they see that administration as being more friendly to their initiative. However, I don't really know how much it really matters at this point, because the momentum of this issue and the legislation and the hearings and the testimony and so forth, they're going to have to start giving up some of it. So it's a matter of if Cheney can really be exerting himself more in the Harris administration, then we may have a slower rollout of disclosure and more of a fight that might drag on. And I don't know. I have no idea like what it would look like if Trump becomes president, because it's just very unpredictable. Yeah. Like Harris, it seems like she will probably just be like more status quo like Biden was. So I don't know, but it is a red flag to me. And I had stated that in my video, that, and also like the timing, like that news just came out. And then like in the debate, Harris mentioned Dick Cheney, like kind of bolstering one of her arguments. You're saying, well, Dick Cheney's supporting me. So, but yeah, it's like, we'll see. But yeah, I think that it's gone in Congress and the Senate too far now that I don't think it can go backwards really.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like we're at this point. I never thought I would see this. I mean, I've been researching UFOs for half my life at this point, over 20 years. And I never thought I would see this day where like we'd be talking about not just Dick Cheney, but like that we'd be having Senate UFO hearings, or David Grush would be talking to all these. It's crazy. Like again,
it's kind of surreal. Yeah,
it is. And I guess nothing in the world should surprise me anymore, especially when it comes to this topic. Well, awesome, man. Well, I guess that's kind of, I highly suggest people watch your video, because you do go much more into depth on these individuals and all of this. So again, guys, be sure to subscribe to that. But I did ask you off air if you were willing to stick around for one of our other stories. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. So the next story that I want to talk about involves this woman who is new on the UFO scene. And we recently learned her name is Sarah Gamm. And I want to get this right. Forgive me, Anthony, for just a moment.
No worries.
I've got my notes here.
Nice.
UAP Task Force member goes public. Sarah Gamm was an intel analyst, former NGA employee, and former member of the UAP Task Force. And she was recently interviewed on the Good Trouble show, and she had some pretty interesting things to say. I'm going to play 3 brief clips, Anthony, and then we can just sort of comment after each of them if you don't mind. The first one's very brief. It's kind of her just giving I guess flexing her security clearances, which I really respected. So yeah, I'm just going to play that quick and then we'll move into the other ones if that's cool.
Sure.
All right.
So let's move on. So clearly you hold a security clearance. What clearance is that, if I may ask?
Yeah, I have a TS, top secret, SCI, secret compartmented information, and I'm able to get read into SAP programs. If you're at NRO, there are reserve programs. So I hold, I guess one of the highest clearances you can. And I've also had a Q clearance as well when I was at ODNI.
So you have had a Q clearance in the Department of Energy.
I have, yes, I have.
Okay, all right, but we're not going to ask.
That was when I was at ODNI. So at working where I was, you basically had to have it because we work so closely with DOE.
All right, so a Q clearance at the DOE, that really stuck out to me, man, because if anyone can sort of obfuscate this topic and get away with, I guess, embargoing information about it, it's the DOE. But yeah, what are your initial thoughts? Now, I can admittedly say I have not watched this entire interview yet. I don't believe you have either, but we've sort of seen the clips going around about it and what she said. What do you make initially, your gut reaction to this Sarah Gamm coming forward from the UAP Task Force?
Yeah, I mean, I watched like the first 5 or 10 minutes. I do want to watch the whole thing to see what she really says. And I think like sometimes even just a one sentence from someone can really give you like a big clue into how it all might fit in. But yeah, my gut impression is that she's being genuine. She obviously held the positions that she did, high security clearances, worked on the UAP task force, has a lot of training and expertise in her field. So I think to me, she just seems like a genuine person who decided to start talking publicly about what she's allowed to talk about this topic. And I think that's a good thing. I also love seeing a female. I think that this UAP issue is, it's dominated, I think, by men, and not that, it's really a big concern of mine, but I like seeing diverse backgrounds. So I'm happy to see, like, she's not a whistleblower, but, a female whistleblower, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, diversity is key, man. I'm with you on that. One of the clips that really stuck out to me is in her time with, working with the geospatial sort of thing, and even with the task force, is images and videos that she witnessed. And the host of the Good Trouble show did ask her about that. So I'm going to play that brief clip, and yeah, we'll just kind of bounce off of that as well. Here we go with that.
Were there things that you saw that were clearly not from here? Maybe from our neighbors somewhere else?
Yes, absolutely. There was a few times when no doubt in my mind, that's not terrestrial, that's not from Earth, that's not an adversary craft. The way things maneuvered, G-forces experienced, disappear, reappear, pop back up. Sometimes it was, and I know I'm not saying anything new, but it's like it would like play. And, pilots would lose track of something, and it's no doubt in your mind, not from Earth.
Not from Earth. That's a pretty bold statement to make. I'm not going to lie, but I mean, she seemed pretty, strong in that conviction. What do you think, man, about this idea that someone like at her level and with her work with the UAP task force saying like, yeah, non-human technology. I witnessed that in these videos. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's great. I think that that's what we need is more people to come out and speak about these things who we know worked in areas where they could have actually seen this stuff. So I think it's great. I mean, look, the more that you research, as I'm sure you're aware, like you said, you've been reading UFO books for 20 years. And when we look at declassified documents, I always point everyone to 1947. General Nathan Twining wrote a memo, came out many decades later, but he said it point blank. These are real and not visionary or fictitious, and most of them at that time were disc shaped. and he says flat on the bottom, domed on the top, your classic saucer shape. So and General Twining went on to become a chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I mean, this guy was a 5-star general, so plus all the other evidence. So my point being, we know that things have been flying around, even though today most people probably will brush it off and say, we just don't know, or we know that something's been flying around for the last 80 years. So for her to say, yeah, I saw them, they, like she said, they seem to play with you. That's interesting. And but I think two things, right, that I'll say about this. One is it's great for her to say that. And I do think that all the evidence up to this point shows that and the claims of very high level people saying there's non-human intelligence, right? And going public. So we can assume that they are being truthful, but until we see the actual proof ourselves. But I also think there's something else to keep in mind, which is that if everyone is coming out and saying that these are not from this earth, and you just hear that again and again, and Lou Elizondo, not from this earth, right? I do think that we should be careful in how disclosure rolls out, because one thing that could be kept secret is the idea that the military-industrial complex, and as Lou Elizondo called it in a video he showed earlier, a powerful cabal that nobody knows about, apparently, right? That they figured out this and made their own UFOs actually all the way back in the 1950s. And the more you research that objectively, the more you see that there's a compelling argument there. Of course, no one's going to be able to prove it. Nobody can prove anything. But I think we should watch, because they could come out and disclosure could happen. And they could say it's all aliens, and we don't really know what they are. We can't really communicate with them, and we're still trying to figure it out. Like, that could be like disclosure, when there may actually be a lot more, and it may involve that humans actually figured out this technology. And why this is important is because if that's true, that means that we can be using this amazing form of energy potentially that could really change our whole world in a very just revolutionary way. So yeah, I mean, maybe some of them are from Earth, and we just don't know who made them and where they're hiding them. I mean, all these underground bases, all these programs, reverse engineering. So that's where I'm always listening to, is like, who's going to come out and say we have them too,
right?
If that's true.
That's, it brings me back to someone like Bob Lazar. And, say what you will about Bob. I know people are extremely divisive on his entire story, and I totally get it. But someone like him would say, when I allegedly worked at S4, I'm the one saying allegedly. He would clearly not say that.
We can never know 100%, right?
Yeah, exactly. We were not able to understand the technology. We were not able to reverse engineer it. They probably, even to this day, are not any closer. He's not read into that sort of stuff anymore ever since he came forward. But basically, he said whoever is in possession of this technology and does understand it and can harness it, game over. And then the real question comes, all right, well, who has those potential craft? Is it just the United States? Does Russia have a craft? Does Japan, China have a craft? Where's this big honking massive UFO that had a building built around it? Allegedly, people like Ross Coulthart, the investigative journalist, have said such. So whoever does have it, and I guess in a race to understand it, does understand it. Scary times, man, if you ask me. Or it could be beautiful times. Think if we use that technology for good, but like Eisenhower would say, beware of the military industrial complex. So it doesn't surprise me if they would weaponize the technology before they'd use it to benefit humanity. Unfortunately, I hate to say that.
Sure. Yeah, that's a valid point.
Yeah. Well, I guess staying in the realm of NHI, the intention of what may be at the source of these quote unquote UFOs. Sarah Gamm did comment on the malevolence of these possible NHI, which I found interesting. We're always under the assumption that an advanced intelligence would be so far ahead that they'd be peace and loving and all of that. And I've always had contention with that. But this was her response to that question. And I'd love to get your thoughts on the malevolent versus, I guess, benevolent when it comes to this. So here's our last clip with Sarah Gamm.
Were there things that you saw that were clearly not from here? Maybe from our neighbors somewhere else?
Yes, absolutely. There was a few times when no doubt in my mind that's not terrestrial, that's not from Earth, that's not an adversary craft. The way things maneuvered, G-forces experienced,
Anthony, I just realized that was the repeat clip, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I was looking at it like, that sounds familiar. I don't think I have that third clip. I thought I had pulled it, so my apologies, guys. Basically, what she was saying was, in a lot of these things that she saw, there were close calls where, like, some of these UAP came very close to, like, our pilots or our sensor systems. Or she even commented on, past historical cases where people were allegedly injured by being in proximity to a UFO. And she even goes as far as to say things like the intelligence behind these things. A lot of them say, like, the gray aliens. You always hear in the mythology of these alien grays that they lack emotion. They're robotic. They don't understand right from wrong, and what we consider, like, whatever, ethics, stuff like that. So yeah, they'll abduct you and experiment on you and not think twice about it.
Right.
And she kind of goes into that, like, yeah, they're like robots, they're drones, so they don't really know they're hurting you or being malevolent. They're doing it for their own reasons and intentions. But that could be considered like malevolent, like it's affecting people in a very negative way.
Sure.
All of that to say, what do you think of this idea? Are there good NHI, bad NHI? Are they, like, fighting for control over the planet? Like, go as far woo as you want with it, man, or keep us grounded. It's up to you. What do you make of all of that?
Yeah. I mean, look, this is such an open-ended question, but it's, like, very fascinating. So, I mean, first, right, I'll say we're trying to understand something from a human perspective. And so there are those who've argued that we're limited in that because we're trying to understand something that's not human from a human perspective. So we're always going to be limited, but that's the best that we can do. So moving on from that, right? All right. Are they bad? Are they good? Right. Well, this is how I look at it. Look at our planet and human beings. There are malevolent human beings and there are benevolent human beings. And this is one race of humans here on Earth. You could say different countries or whatever. There are many different types of humans. You can meet someone that hates you and would torture you and be sadistic. Look at our own government. Look at the CIA and the torture programs that they got caught doing, MK Ultra that they got caught doing, very malevolent. So we have plenty of malevolence from human beings and from our own United States government. Now, they're also very kind and loving and compassionate human beings. So I think it reasons to say that assuming there are these advanced beings with this advanced technology that are interacting with our world, that there would not just be one, the aliens, right? There would be many different types. And in fact, the people who have spoke about this, who claimed this inside knowledge all these decades, that's another one of these themes, is that there are many different, you've heard people say they identified 19 different races, more, whatever. So you probably have a lot of different types with different agendas, potentially different ways of being. And I would also say this, though, So we have to understand that, right? I think. I would also say this about things like experiments and abductions and so forth, and things that are malevolent and scary, right? I think it's worth us thinking about down here on Earth again, and what we do to animals, because we pick up animals and we poke and prod them, and we use them for experimentation where they die. We gather them up and put them in factories where they're just living in like terrible conditions to just be slaughtered. So, and the reason that we don't think that that's a problem is because we're smarter, more intelligent, even though they're sentient beings with some type of consciousness, right? So if these are beings that are way more advanced than us, at least in some way that they are operating this technology that we can't even fathom. So, okay, they're more intelligent in a certain way. The fact that they're doing these things, it's very it's very relative, because we don't find it to be horrible, malevolent what we do to animals. Most people don't. And so these being non-human intelligence is experimenting with us. Okay, it's scary and it's like, ugh, but they're not lining us up and slaughtering us in a assembly line. So
yeah,
that's kind of my perspective. And we could just go on and on with that, but those are the main things I think about that topic.
Absolutely, man. You make some really good points there. That's a great comparison too. Like, hopefully we don't get to the point where they're putting us in an assembly line. We can definitely learn from that. I think that's for sure. Yeah, I do want to go and watch this entire interview, because I think it's good that members of the UAP Task Force are now feeling empowered or emboldened to come forward after people like Jay Stratton have done so. I'd love to hear from Jay Stratton about Sarah and what she's saying. Maybe we will hear more again in his book or in interviews. I don't know. But it was fascinating. I highly suggest people go watch that interview. We did put a link in the chat there as well for that. But links for you, Anthony. I kept you far longer than I said, man. So I will let you go. I'm gonna do a few more little stories here and clips, but let us know where we can find your work. If you have any videos coming up that you're willing to tease, maybe. But yeah, man, this is your time. Let us know where we can find everything you're up to.
Yeah, just on YouTube, Expanded Knowledge, XPANDED knowledge, and that's where all my videos are. It's either videos of research from historical topics. Now, most of the channel is UFO related, but there's also a lot of other stuff, because really everything is interconnected. And I will also cover recent things that are happening with disclosure, like you're doing here. So that's the main spot. I'm working on a book, and I'll let you know when that comes out. And but just the YouTube, yeah. And reach out if anybody wants to connect and collaborate on anything.
I was so excited when you actually replied, because it rarely happens. Let's be
Oh,
honest.
good. Yeah.
When I tweet to people or even comment on YouTube, it's rare that anyone ever actually takes the time to respond. So I got to thank you for taking a chance and again coming on the show tonight to talk about these things. Again, guys, check out his video all about the Dick Cheney thing. It was very fascinating. But dude, I can't wait to see what you do next, and I'm so happy that I found your channel. So I will say good night to you here.
Sure.
And I will finish out with some mummy stuff. I'll spare you from that. But again, I want to thank Anthony for coming on somewhere in the live stream tonight. And I don't think this will be the last time we'll have you on, if that's cool.
Yeah, I'm happy to come on and talk. It's been really nice talking with you, Ryan.
Awesome. Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate it, buddy.
Kudos to you for doing this channel and keeping people informed and diving into this.
I'm trying, man, but we can use all the help we can get. So again, guys, go subscribe to Anthony's channel for sure. And I'll say goodnight to you here, man. So thank you again.
You got it, Ryan. Thank you.
All right. Take care, buddy.
Bye. You too.
There we go, guys. Anthony, go subscribe to his channel. So happy I found it today. It's amazing like these happy accidents that can happen from a simple Google search. And so happy that he made the time to do that tonight. So go check it out for sure. I want to rewind to another story with you guys before we begin to close things out. I have a very special announcement, so stick around. Don't leave me yet. Don't ditch us. I know Anthony was the man of the hour. Mummies. We're back to talking about the Nazca, Peru mummies, and there's a reason for that. So within the last week or so, well, let's rewind even further. Apparently, Jaime Maussan met up with Tim Burchett in the United States, and the plan was that these mummies were going to be shipped to the United States to get tested. Now we don't know if that's going to happen because, and I want to get this right, the Peruvian Ministry of Culture commandeered the Nazca mummies. So this story came to us from a journalist actually in Peru named Luis Mantilla. And he basically was the first to find out that the Peruvian Ministry of Culture took 2 of these specimens, and they are now in the possession of them. And they were brought to a hospital in Peru to have x-rays done to, try to make heads or tails of these things and see if these things need to be returned to Peru for good. They are currently being held at, again, let me double check this here, the University of Ica. And that's where a lot of the tests were being done. And a lot of the scientists working on the tests of the mummies was being done as well. And we have a video that I want to share with you guys. And this comes from Mantilla, the journalist. He actually was able to film them commandeering the mummies. And then he flew all the way to this hospital, which was like, I think he said something like 400 kilometers away or something, to where the tests were being done. So I'm going to play this clip for you guys. Just bear in mind that this was dubbed over with English. And it seems like they use some AI translate sort of thing. So it changes constantly. It's a little choppy, but hopefully you'll be able to make heads of tails of it. I do want to get to this story because it is a development no matter what you make of it. So let's check this out.
This was a procedure in which the bodies were taken away, accompanied by university personnel and also security personnel from here who accompanied the procedure the entire time. We have an audio-visual record of what happened, of the entire procedure, even during the journey, and they went as far as the headquarters of the health center. It is a large hospital, a public hospital, and I have had contact with the radiologist who was in charge of taking the x-rays and the CT scans. I will keep the name of this radiologist confidential, however. We have to say that he is obviously a very qualified professional, one of the best in the region here in Ica. And by directing and performing the tomographies and being able to have radiological access, he has realized something that has caught his attention: the great state of preservation of the internal organs of the mummies, and in addition he has not noticed any mutilations. He only saw one whole body, which, by the way, as strange as its limbs may seem, are authentic. They are original. And he's going to have to write a report. This report hopefully contains what I am telling you and reporting to you at this moment. The Ministry of Culture, now headed by a new minister, has complied with the procedures established in the document and the letter requesting this procedure. The university arrived on Monday of this week and promptly requested to do x-rays on it to determine if it is a national heritage. I trust that this will obviously give you enough information so that you can put an end to the differences and discrepancies regarding the nature and originality of these bodies, especially that of Maria, which is one of the most surprising, the most studied, and about which research works by scientists have even been presented, shared not only by professors from this university, but also by researchers from the Universidad Nacional Mayor de San Marcos. So I'm going to ask Dr. Edgar Hernandez to join us for a minute so he can give us some details of what happened today and his impressions regarding what we have now.
We had a visit from members of the Ministry of Culture with a document, a letter that they had sent to the Vice-Chancellor, so that they could take 2 of the mummies so that he could make 1. Some radiological and tomographic studies were carried out, and, well, the Vice-Rector accepted them and the mummies were transported. But we, as an organization, also took the precaution of having our staff, almost 5 or 6 people, including those who spoke, as well as our own transportation, to be able to guard and prevent this from being some kind of strategy for them to be able to confiscate the bodies that we have known for some time that they wanted to do.
It seems to me that one thing we have noticed in the letter that the Ministry of Culture sent here to the Vice-Chancellor,
is that they are aware of doubts and suspicions about his actions, and they put it in writing.
because of the suspicions that may exist regarding illegal behavior, we give them such guarantees, and they even set the schedules and what the procedure will be and what they will do when they return to their place of origin. That's true?
Yes. Yes, of course. Everything has been fulfilled. It was fulfilled. Everything was fulfilled because we also demanded it.
Of course. Okay, well, so the Nazca mummies have returned to their original place. Here they are behind. We know that we have seen
that they have been placed, and there is also photographic and film evidence, and that this entire process was carried out in compliance with the agreements that had been made.
Perfect. So with this I leave you, I think, quite calm. There are dozens of messages that have been arriving during my journey from Lima to Ica.
I have arrived as quickly as possible. It is more or less more than 400 kilometers from Lima to here. It is more or less 4 hours or a little less. But here we are always attentive to what may happen, and above all knowing that they are in good hands, not only of Professor Zuniga, Dr. Hernandez, but also the entire team from the University of Ica that has in its hands this extraordinary discovery that will bring them many surprises in a few days and in a few more weeks. Dr. Hernandez, a few final words, please.
Yes, I thank the journalist Mantilla, who I believe is the only one who is covering all the details of the events that are happening with the mummies of Nazca, of Ica, which are here at the University of San Luis Gonzaga, and the interested public as well. We will soon have more news. We already have a scientific article published, and I have just sent another article to another journal, and it seems to me that the scientific world is more open to these issues, and that there will soon be more surprises.
More surprises to come. The great mummy scandal? I don't know what we want to call it. The great mummy romp continues. It's interesting, the fact that these were taken by the ministry, which is understandable. But now they're doing their own tests and they're coming up with possible anomalous findings as well. So it does make you kind of wonder. I'm not saying these are authentic. I'm not saying they're alien. I'm not saying that this all isn't a huge, elaborate hoax. What I'm saying is we don't know. And we won't know until all scientists in all different countries come together, peer review all of this stuff, and come to a conclusion. And it seems like the Ministry of Culture is willing to work with the scientists that are outside of their purview on all of this. Let's say Jaime Maussan's scientists and whatnot, or the ones that he's sort of hired. It seems like the new head of the ministry is willing to work with them. The real question now is, will these ever make it to the United States? That's what a lot of people are wondering. Or has this kind of put a whole wrench in that? It would be hilarious if Jaime Maussan got done for illegal. I missed that. What said something about illegal. They already know they're dolls made from bones, don't they? That's the question. Are they or are they not? Jaime Maussan got done with illegal trafficking of artifacts after all of this hoaxing. Yeah, I mean, the guy is contentious to say the very least. That's for sure. All work, low pay. I want to put this up here. I thought they were total BS at first. The studies are interesting. However, experts can be deceived. I would like to see more peer review stuff. Amen. Amen. So, yeah. It all continues, guys, but this is the latest development in the Peru mummy story. We'll see what happens next. I'm sure we will learn more in the coming week or so. That's it for news stories, guys. What I want to end with tonight with you are two clips. One is from a podcast, and one is from my favorite TikToker now, and that is Astro Alexandra. I want to go out on a good note. So let's look at this clip by the Mr. Obnoxious podcast. What a name for a podcast. So Matthew Pines, who was a director of intelligence at Sentinel-1 and a national security fellow at the Bitcoin Policy Institute, interesting, explains his perspective on why disclosure is happening now, citing language in the UAP Disclosure Act, the UAPDA. So let's go ahead and watch this clip. It was really interesting to hear him say why he thinks disclosure is happening now. So let me go ahead and play that. We'll start to close things out, guys.
Why is this happening now? Looking at some of the text that has come out of the Senate in particular about their motivations for crafting this legislation is that, and they put this in writing, basically said in order to mitigate the possibility of foreign technology surprise, the U.S. government must expand awareness of historical exotic technology antecedents previously provided by the federal government for research and development purposes. So that was a line that was in language. And that I think spells it out, right? It's like, in order to mitigate the possibility of foreign technology surprise, meaning China might get the jump on us, might all of a sudden come out with something that has, like a breakthrough leap ahead capability. In order to mitigate that possibility, the federal government must broaden awareness of historical exotic technology antecedents. Now, that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
They're basically referring to, historical exotic technology that has been previously acquired by federal government and has been provided by the federal government for research and development purposes. They left out kind of the propositional clause there of like provided by the federal government for research and development purposes to who, right? It's provided by the federal government. Well, who do they provide it to? I think the clear implication is they provided these historical exotic technology antecedents to elements of the defense industrial base to try to figure out how they work. And so the natural inference I draw from that is that, okay, Lockheed, Boeing, Raytheon, these guys got this stuff decades ago. They had a tiny number of people working on these programs to try to figure out how this exotic technology functions. And maybe they not have made much progress. And meanwhile, there might be separate channels of intelligence reporting coming out of our very effective capabilities to track the state of Chinese military R&D. That's a main priority, is understanding like what can China's systems do. How capable are their hypersonic missiles? What sorts of stealth do their subs have? What sorts of detection capabilities do they have? We want to know all of that stuff. So we're going to recruit people inside those agencies to tell us what they're doing. We're going to try to track all their scientists. We're going to try to do everything we can to understand what the Chinese military R&D is looking at. And so you can imagine a scenario where our intelligence collection apparatus looking at China tracks a bunch of scientists, engineers, different programs being stood up that would be like, well, that's odd. A bunch of people that are working on this rocket program just got moved over to this part. And there seems to be a lot of money, a lot of resources being sucked into this new thing. What are they doing over there? That seems to be important. And if a different part of the intelligence community now was like, there seems to be something quite exotic, something new that the Chinese are really crashing their effort on, that reporting would sort of float up to, say, the Senate, right? And they would get reporting on maybe China's actually looking at these programs in a different way than we have. And so now we need to basically change the security architecture for these historical legacy programs. That in order to mitigate the possibility of, say, China getting the jump on us, we need to bring in new people. We need to bring in more people. And the only way we can do that is if we kind of broaden awareness of these programs, which means we have to prepare, maybe a larger set of people for the existence of these materials. And then we have to then assume that we might have to answer this larger question to civil society on, well, what exactly has been going on these last 80 years, right? And so this is kind of, these are all interlinked things, right? In order to mitigate this geopolitical risk, this technological surprise risk, we have to have a serious national plan for disclosure, for being increasingly transparent and having a more open, serious conversation about UAPs. Like these are entangled strategic requirements.
There you go, guys. If that's not a reason for disclosure, I don't know what is. It always comes back to the military industrial complex and the intelligence agencies, just like Anthony and I were talking about earlier. This has been going on for a very, very, very long time. And it does seem, as so many people are saying, that something's about to happen. Make of that what you will, either prophetically, hypothetically, I don't know. But it seems like we're on the cusp of something. Could that simply be another war with a superpower? I hope not. Sure as hell hope not. But yeah. Or is there an impending planned contact with an NHI of some sort? I'm just literally throwing, throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. I don't know. But I found this conversation fascinating. Guys, check out the Mr. Obnoxious podcast with Matthew Pines as their guest. Interested to look more into Matthew. He's kind of come on the UFO scene as of late and is doing interviews and has been making some claims that people are coming out, that he's heard that people are coming out like whistleblowers. Could he have been talking about Sarah Gamm? I don't know. But maybe there's more coming down the line before the year's end. We shall see. All right, guys. I'm going to give you a fun announcement that just happened today for me personally, but I hope it's something that you can also be a part of. This is just so funny how these things happen. So for those of you who may or may not know, I am currently on a ghost hunting show in Nova Scotia. This will be my third season of filming, actually, this upcoming September and October. And I do that with Paul Kimball, who you guys may know in past interviews, UFO researcher, ghost hunter, filmmaker, you name it, the man's done it. Gosh, he was a lawyer at one point. I think he ran for like politics in Nova Scotia too. So the guy is just does everything. All of that being said, I was planning on going to this special UFO expo in Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia, to film for an upcoming project that I'm doing. I can't really say too much about it yet, but I was planning on attending this event just to film. There's going to be UFO researchers there and firsthand witnesses to the 1967 Shag Harbor UFO event. And I was like, hell yeah, I want to go to this. I'm going to be in Nova Scotia. Why not? So what happened this morning is I got a call from the organizer of the event. And unfortunately, one of their speakers, Preston Dennett, who you guys know presented at Anomicon a couple weeks ago, unfortunately wasn't able to make it. So they asked me to fill in last minute. So I am going to now be a guest speaker at the Shag Harbor UFO Expo this September 27th and 29th. So we do have a link for tickets right there on the screen for you in the live chat. I'll have it in the show notes as well after this in retrospect as well. But I would love to see you guys if you want to come see me give my my lecture at the Shag Harbor UFO Expo. This is just everything happens for a reason. So not only will I be filming there for a project, I'm now going to be a speaker at the event. Just crazy. The event is taking place in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. Like I said, September 27th, 29th. So it's coming up very, very soon. So you can get your tickets at that link. The event is going to be hosted by Martin Willis. So a lot of you may know him as the host of Podcast UFO, another podcast I highly, highly recommend you subscribe to. He'll kind of be the MC, the host of the entire event, which is cool. And it will feature UFO researchers Bryce Zabel, Chris Rakowski, Jennifer Stein, Shag Harbor investigator Chris Stiles, and now Ryan Sprague. So I hope you guys will come say hello in Yarmouth and join me at the Shag Harbor UFO Expo. You could find out more at the Shag Harbor UFO Expo website as well. And yeah, super exciting. I can't wait. Hope to meet some of you there. And one last, it's never just one last thing with me, guys. I have a brand new episode premiering in the next couple hours. Incident at Falkland Hill, a Scottish UFO mystery. I am so excited for this one, guys. I worked my ass off on this episode. In fact, I'm going to play a brief clip, a little teaser for you guys from the episode before we get going for what you can expect from Incident at Falkland Hill, dropping on all podcast feeds in the next couple hours. Give this a watch.
As I looked through the binoculars, I could see a glowing object in the woods. It was round, like a large orb, but slightly elongated towards the top and bottom. It was shimmering from the moonlight. I could also see large, irregular indentations all over the exterior of the object, each of which was dark in colour. Near the base of the object was a very long, irregularly shaped oval kind of opening, which was also dark in colour. This object appeared to be hovering a few feet off the ground. As it did so, it revolved, slowly and steadily, on a slightly tilted axis. To the right of this object was a perfectly circular, dull, red-coloured disc.
There we go, guys. We've got a Scottish UFO mystery coming to you very, very soon. That is the voice of a Scottish actor that I hired right here in Scotland to voice our main witness of this episode. It gets very detailed. It gets very dramatic. So I cannot wait for you to hear this episode. Dropping very soon. Speaking of which, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Download all of the episodes. That helps us tremendously. And be sure to leave a rating and a review as well. That boosts us up in the featured sections on Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. And as an independent podcast, it's hard to go up against some of these bigger shows out there. So every rating and review helps us tremendously. That goes for YouTube as well. Click like, click subscribe, do all those YouTube-y thingies. And that'll help us out a lot. We talked a lot about government and UFOs tonight, so I would also like you guys to check out 2 of our Anomicon presentations that I just released right here on YouTube as well. The first being Christina Gomez, and she talked about the congressional UFO hearing and whistleblowers, a timeline. So yeah, she gets us up to date with everything going on leading up to this proposed Senate UAP hearing that should be happening in the next couple weeks. So you can find that right on the Anomicon playlist on YouTube. And speaking of which, we also just dropped Lester Nare's presentation, Beyond the UAPDA, Shaping the Next Generation of UAP Policy and Governance. As we move into, the National Defense Authorization Act of the next year, and hopefully the UAPDA, I guess I shouldn't say hopefully, because I still don't know where I land on it yet. That if it's going to pass or not. And if it does, what comes next for the UAP topic within government? We shall see. The Schumer rounds thing. Lester talks all about it in this presentation and what we should do moving forward when it comes to the UAPDA and beyond. So be sure to check both of those presentations out right here on YouTube. Hit like, hit subscribe, do all those things again. And last but not least, again, we started the show with it. We're going to end the show with it. If you can, please help out my baby sister, Christy Sprague, and her wonderful dog, Maddie, who is going through some health issues right now. And Christy could really use your help. So I set up a GoFundMe for her to help ease some of the financial burden that has come with these crazy, crazy medical bills that she's getting. So yeah, there's a link in the show notes as well for that. That's going to do it, guys. I want to thank all of you so much for joining me tonight. I want to give a special thanks again to Anthony for hopping in and joining us and giving us all of his insights. Again, go subscribe to his channel. And I want to thank Suzanne, as always, for being incredible in the chat and for helping us out tonight with everything. But a special thanks to all of our Patreon subscribers, YouTube members, Apple Premium subscribers, and super chatters, super stickers, all of you guys. Thank you. Everything you donate or do to help support the show is just beyond appreciated. So thank you. I truly appreciate all of it. And a special thanks to you for watching, for listening. And every week now, I want to end on a really positive note. So hopefully, my new favorite TikToker, like I mentioned, Astro Alexandra, will continue pumping out these awesome short videos. I will leave you with this one to close things out for tonight, guys. And this video is titled, Does Time Exist? Does time exist? I love it. So we will end with that and close things out, guys. So thank you again for coming to Somewhere in the live stream. And I will see you hopefully next week for another brand new show. So I'll leave you with our mantra, and that is keep your feet on the ground, but never stop searching somewhere in the skies. Enjoy.
Does time exist? Is time real? We view time as seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, and years, and all of those things can be broken down into one another. And that is fake. Humans made it up. It's a combination of multiple civilizations around the world independently coming up with calendars. So humans seem to have a need to organize and structure what we perceive as time. But the universe doesn't care. What is true in the universe is intervals. So what we call every 365.25 days, the Earth completes an orbit around the sun. And that's a specific set of time passing. But Earth doesn't do it because it's following time. We assigned that time to what Earth was already doing. Light is the fastest thing that we know about, so this has become an important measurement for us. The distance that light can travel in 1 year is a light year. So when light hits us from 6 light years away, we're seeing that object as it was 6 years ago, but for us, it's now. It gets complicated when you think of moving forward and backward in time and time dilation. Because if we're looking at a spacecraft traveling near the speed of light, time would seem to move slower on the spacecraft than it would for us. And also, the universe is expanding, so if we could go into the universe, would we go back in time? Would we bend the fabric of space-time and travel into the past or the future? So the answer to all of this, I don't know. It's all insane, and we made up a way to organize it.
There's nothing to hide. There's nothing to hide at all.